Working with our Lion Canyon Photoshop file. So what you'll need to do is first download the file off Canvas, open it up, and I'll just expand that so you can see a little bit better. And you should see a lion.jpg file on the right here, which is on top of the Gold Canyon or Grand Canyon. I've actually grabbed these files from somewhere else, so I haven't labeled those, so don't hold me to account. What I want you to do is just two things really quickly before you start. Make sure that Essentials is selected up here in the top right hand corner, and to also just go through and click on the Reset Essentials tab, which will reset any of the displays or features that we've got here. The object we're going to be doing is, the objective we're going to be doing is to put the lion head into that background there to make it sort of look like the American presidents that you see that are obviously carved into the mountainside. So the first thing to do is to use our quick selection tool. So go across here to the left, look for this tab here, which is the fourth one down, and quick selection tool. I'm on the minus button. Make sure you're on the plus. So just go up the top here, select, and what we want to do is to grab the lion head, the shadow, and through to here, and we'll grab a little bit of that as we go through it. And we don't want any of the background, and we'll create a layer mask. So let's just go through really quick. Select that. I'll try and do that accurately. Yep, going to grab the shadow, go through there. Actually, that's almost perfect. I'll just grab a little bit of the foot there. And I think we've pretty well got it. If you look here, if we just go refine edge for a moment, you'll notice that I've actually got a bit of that background there that I'm not actually after. So I want to go through and I want to remove that from what I've actually got. Might just drop back into here, go to the minus, go through and select that so that I've got it. That looks okay. Once you've got that, go to our mask tool down the bottom here and click on that, and you should see the mask now appear. Now there is one problem when you look at the image of the lion. You'll notice that, so I'll just grab my movement tool there. If you look at the mountain here, you'll notice the shadow is coming through on this side, but the light is on this side, which means our line is actually incorrect. We need the light on this side, we need the dark side on that particular side there. So we need to use our free transform tool, which is Control T. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to flip the line. So just right click, and we're going to flip horizontal. There we go. Once we do that, we now have the light on the correct side over here, and we have the shadow on the left hand side of the line. Now what we need to also do once we've done that is to apply that. So just press the enter key or click on the tick at the top. And what we're going to do is to convert this into a smart object. And that's not going to remove anything. So okay, so what you want to do now is to convert this into a smart object. So watch this part very carefully. So if you were to right click on the layer mask, you get one set of options, which is not what we need. Come across here to where it says lion.jpg, right click and go convert to smart object. Now you've not lost any of the work that we've been doing. If we double click on that, we now have our line that we've been working with. We still have our mask in there. So you get out of that, just Control W or Command W if you're on a Mac to take you back a step. Okay, so what we want to do now that we've got our smart object is to lower the opacity a little bit so we can start to see that in the background. And we're going to reposition it where our lion head is matching in as close as we possibly can to what we've got on there. So let's move that to about there. And that's getting us pretty close to what we're after. Okay, so what we want to do now is to click on our layer mask tool, and we're going to actually blend that back in. So what that involves us doing is, we'll just increase the opacity a little bit, we don't need it as dulled down as we want, is to go to our brush tool and we select that. We're going to be using black for the selection, and we're going to be having, let's move our brush size to about 125. Opacity is at 100%. And what we're going to do is to, I'll just make it a little bit bigger, is to start getting rid of this through here. So as you see, I'm removing that material through here. Just remove that a little bit more. We just want to be left with the main essentially, so I'll just try and get rid of as much of that as I can. Okay, so the next part we're going to do is, if I just remove the line from the background scene so we can have a look at what's going on. And I might just zoom in a little bit so we can see a little bit better. You'll notice this ridge line. If I just bring the line back, we're going to integrate that as part of our feature. If you would imagine that actually being built or carved in or being plastered, I guess, from scratch, is you want it to try and match the background landscape as much as possible. So what we're going to do is click on the canyon layer using our selection tool. Just move back up here. Add that back in. We'll just make this a little bit smaller. Is we want to go through and select just this ridge line through here. Just make sure we get enough of it. Yep, looks like we've got everything we need. So that's going to overlay what we've actually got through there. So while that's selected, click on this layer here. Actually, if you look at that, I've not got quite enough, or I've not removed enough of that from there. I might just grab a touch more through here. A little bit more. Yeah, that looks like that's got that all through there. What we're then going to do is so what we're going to do now that we've got that selected is we're going to use our Alt Delete option, which is not something we've used before, which is actually going to fill that. So if you're on a Mac, it's going to be Option Delete, so Alt Delete on Windows, and that's actually going to fill that section. As you see, it's now started to blend that in. So that's actually got to make sure you've clicked on the mask here on the line layer, and Alt Delete on a Windows, Option Delete on a Mac. One of the next things I want to do really quickly is to go back to our brush tool that we had selected earlier, and we're going to just lower the opacity down a little bit. I'm just going to try and blend this in a little bit more. I'll just deselect what we've got on the screen there first. Control D. And I'm just going to get this in a little bit more. You may need to fiddle a little bit here. Reduce the opacity a little bit more just to get that blend feature coming in there. Well, probably a little bit too much on that last one. Just Control Z will undo that. Now the next part we're going to be doing is to take this texture here and apply it to the line so we can actually get it to blend in. So what I want you to do is to make sure you have the background layer selected. Using the lasso tool, is we're just going to cut out a nice big section across here. We're going to cut that all out, and what we're going to do is be able to move that across there. So of course I've cut that completely from it, which is not what we want to do. Okay, so one of the steps you do is by default you'll click on that and drag it across. If you notice, it's actually not going to be big enough as it is, and it's on the wrong layer. So I need to just Control Z to put that back, Control D to deselect, and I need a much bigger selection than what I had. I'll just check that looks right. If you're on a Mac, it's Control J. If you're on a Windows, Mac is Command J. If you're on a Windows machine, it's Control J. That'll actually create a new layer. What I want you to do is to drag that layer to the top, use the movement tool, and we'll now be able to move that over our line. Okay, so now what we want to do is to change this here to an overlay. So click on this option here, go down the menu and click on overlay. I'll give you a moment just to catch up. Click on overlay, and that will create this form of background texture. Now just before I do a couple of other things and we move it, let's just transform this. So Control T, and we're just going to stretch that out a bit. Let's just make that a bit better. Press enter to apply. Now what we're going to do is, this is a technique you've not used before. So while we're on that layer, if you're on a Windows machine, hold down the Alt key. If you're on a Mac, hold down the Alt Option key. While that layer is selected, just press and hold the key, don't release, come down to where the edge line is and click. What that does is applies it between the two masks, and you'll notice that it's actually blended in that rock type formation straight away for us. Okay, so just to finish this off, this layer we've got with our line that we've now got selected with our color overlay doesn't look quite right in the way that it blends in, so simply just make sure that layer is selected, go Image, Adjustments, and there's a number of options you've got here for adjusting it. We might just have a look at color balance, which might be the fastest way to do it. Notice that we can actually change our balance just to get that probably a little bit more blue. Should be able to get that matched in a little bit better. We're getting pretty close. As we adjust that tone, so it actually doesn't look too bad. Come back, it's probably not quite right. We probably are after more of this brown style of color in what we've got. So what we can do is there are some options for color lookup. We could change that. We could go through, I really like to have a play with these options if you can. We could have a look at matching colors, which is always an option. Of course, we've already got this texture applied and it's only overlaying it to what we've got. We could also, I'm not going to be using auto color, that will actually make most of the issues come up in terms of color balancing and shadows and lights. And I think our color is pretty well right. It's probably more our levels that we need to have a little bit of a play with. And if we just come through, we'll try and, that's much better. As soon as we've moved that through there, try and get these right. Gee, that's not too bad for a quick demonstration in terms of what it's actually got it balancing in. So I'm really trying to match these colors here with that darkness through there. As you see, that line's really got the texture of those mountains around there. I think probably ideally I should have used this area here for our overlay rather than use this area here. But as you see, that's a really quick demo for taking two images, taking the mask, applying a color overlay or a background texture overlay, and that can be pretty well used on every one of your assignments. So, assignment photos. So really have a go at this, try and get as accurate as you can, and please submit your finished product.